Let me tell you a quick story. A friend of mine had a chance to invest early in a small tech startup. He liked the founder, he believed in the idea, but he hesitated. He wanted to think about it just a little bit more. He said, "Let me sleep on it. Let me get some more data. Let me just wait and see." 3 weeks later, the round was closed. He missed it. And that startup is now valued at over $600 million. So his $50,000 investment could have turned into over $5 million. And here's the worst part. He didn't regret the loss of money. He regretted the loss of self-trust. He stopped trusting his own gut. And he said to me, I felt it. But I didn't move. And that moment started a long spiral of second-guessing, hesitation, and missed opportunities. Not just in business, but in life. And maybe, if you are honest, you know that you have been there too. So, indecision is expensive. And not just financially. It costs you momentum. It costs you self-trust. It costs you time, which is the most valuable currency we have. And sometimes it costs you your future. Let's get brutally honest. Where in your life right now are you avoiding a decision you already know you need to make? I'm asking you again, where in your life right now are you avoiding a decision that you know you need to make? Maybe it's ending something that no longer fits. Maybe it's starting something that scares the hell out of you. Maybe it's a call, an email, a pivot, a leap. But you're stuck in that no man's land between yes and no. And here's the truth no one wants to say. Staying stuck is a decision. And it's almost always the wrong one. We glorify planning. We overvalue caution. We overthink. We overanalyze and drown in what-ifs. But boldness, calculated boldness, is a skill. And you can train it. Because what's waiting on the other side of decisiveness? What is waiting on the other side of decisiveness? It is freedom, it is clarity, it is momentum, and it is power. But you have to earn it. And that means learning how to move even when you are afraid. Today's episode is not about becoming reckless. It is about becoming real. Real with your fears, real with your delays, and real with how much it's costing you to sit on the fence. And by the end of this hour, you will understand 4 things. Number 1, why you freeze when it's time to choose. Number 2, how your brain is wired against bold decisions. Number 3, the hidden fear that keeps you paralyzed. And number 4, you will understand, most importantly, how to reclaim your power to act, to move, and to leap. And this isn't just theory. We'll walk you through science, stories, practical tools, and real-world frameworks. So you don't just understand decision-making. You do it. Because if you can train yourself to move boldly, you will change your life faster than you ever imagined. And if you don't, well, you already know how that story ends. So buckle up. No fluff, no filters, just clarity, courage, and the tools to break the paralysis once and for all. So let's dive in. A question for you. Why do we get stuck? Why is it even smart, capable, ambitious, all of those people, maybe even people like you, they freeze up when it's time to decide? Why do people postpone the very choices that could change everything? The answer is simple, and it is brutal. Indecision is not a thinking problem. Indecision is a fear problem. Let me explain. Every single day you make about 35,000 decisions. From micro decisions like what socks should I wear, to major ones like should I hire this person, or is it time to leave this relationship? Here's what most people don't realize. Every decision, no matter how small, drains your mental energy. That's why decision fatigue is real. In one famous study of judges, researchers found that parole decisions were heavily influenced by the time of day. So before lunch, parole was granted only 10% of the time. And guess how many times was parole granted right after lunch? 65%. So you go from 10% before lunch to 65% after lunch. Why? Not because the cases were better, but because the judges were tired. Your brain conserves energy by avoiding decisions, which means the more you postpone a choice, the heavier it gets. And there is another deep wiring in our brain that sabotages bold moves. This one is called loss aversion, discovered by behavioral economist Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. They found that we feel the pain of loss twice as intensely as the pleasure of gain. So if a decision has a 50-50 chance, gain versus loss, your brain will overreact to the risk, not to the reward. So even when logic says, come on, go for it, your emotions scream. What if it goes wrong? What if it goes wrong? And so you wait and overthink and think some more. And by then, the window of opportunity is gone. And some people say, I'm just being thorough, or I want to make the best choice, or I'm being strategic. But what they're really doing is trying to protect themselves from being wrong. So let's call it what it is. Perfectionism is fear in disguise. It's control masquerading as care. Perfectionists don't make better decisions. They make slower ones, and they miss more opportunities. Here is the truth. There's no perfect choice. There's just the choice you make and how you show up for it. There is no perfect choice. And this brings us to one of the biggest lies we've been sold, that more options equal more freedom. The author Barry Schwartz wrote a brilliant book called The Paradox of Choice, where he showed how having too many choices actually makes us miserable. Why? Because the more options we have, the more fear we have that we're making the wrong choice. The more options we have, the more we compare and imagine alternative outcomes. The more options we have, the more regret and FOMO, the fear of missing out, we feel after we decide. So instead of feeling empowered, we feel paralyzed. Does that sound familiar? Let's go even deeper. Because what is the biggest decision in life? It's not just about circumstances. It's all about identity. So when you're stuck, then ask yourself, what identity shift is this decision forcing me to make? So for example, you are starting a business. Then you go from being an employee to being an entrepreneur. You're quitting a relationship. So you go from we to me. Or you're speaking your truth. Then you risk becoming someone else. Becoming someone who someone else disapproves of. And here's what research from Stanford shows. When people see a decision as identity defining, they relay it 3 times longer than they would otherwise. 3 times longer, just because it doesn't fit their current identity. Because they're not deciding what to do, they are deciding who to become. An ego trap. If we're honest, a lot of us stay stuck not because of logic, but because of our ego. The ego wants 2 things and 2 things only. The ego wants to look good, and the ego wants to stay safe. So when a decision threatens either of those things, ego pulls the brakes and says, what if I fail? What will people think? What if I lose status, respect, and credibility? So this is what I call the ego trap formula. The bigger the audience in your mind, the slower you move. So if you're trying to protect your image, your status, or your narrative, you will almost always default to inaction. Because it feels safer to delay than to risk being wrong. But here's a hard truth. You don't build confidence by being right. What the ego wants, it wants to be right. But you build confidence by being willing to be wrong and moving anyway. So let's recap where we are right now. Number 1, you get stuck because your brain is wired for survival, not for boldness. Number 2, fear of loss, fear of identity change, and fear of judgment hijack your clarity. Number 3, perfectionism and overthinking are socially acceptable forms of self-sabotage. And number 4, the ego, trying to look good, makes you freeze instead of move. And now that you know this, we can start breaking the cycle. Because once you see the pattern, you no longer have to be the prisoner of it. Next, we'll explore the science of bold decision-making and how elite performers make fast, smart, high-stakes decisions even under pressure. This is where you reclaim your edge. So let's go deeper into the science of bold decision-making, because it's not just a mindset. It's a measurable, trainable skill. And the people who rise to the top, whether in sports, business, or leadership, they don't just decide faster. They decide better. Because they understand how decisions actually work under pressure. Let's break that down. In high-stakes environments, speed beats perfection. You may have heard of the speed-accuracy trade-off. It's the idea that the faster you go, the more likely you are to make mistakes. And while that's true in the short term, long-term success actually favors speed. Let me explain this. A study at MIT found that faster decision makers were significantly more successful in dynamic environments, even if their individual decisions weren't always perfect. Why is that? Because they adapted faster, they got real-world feedback, and they actually moved. Action. They acted. They did something. Meanwhile, slow decision makers stayed frozen in theory. They aimed for perfect and missed their window completely. Amazon, with founder Jeff Bezos, talks about the 70% rule. And he says, most decisions should be made with about 70% of the information you wish you had. If you wait for 90% or more, then you're probably being too slow. So this mindset built a $1 trillion company. What could it build for you? So let's talk about what happens in your brain when you face a bold decision. The part of the brain responsible for rational decision making is called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. It is the CEO of your brain. That's the one in charge of weighing options, of planning, of analyzing. But when you feel fear or pressure, then another part of the brain, the amygdala, takes over. And that is your ancient survival center. And this one is designed to protect you, to keep you alive, but it does that by shutting down possibility and focusing only on the threat. So in moments of pressure, your brain literally narrows your field of options. So you stop thinking creatively. You default to safety. You default to defensiveness, and you freeze. Unless you know how to override that response. One of the best decision-making frameworks comes from the military strategy. It is called the OODA loop. O-O-D-A. OODA. The OODA loop. And it was developed by the US Air Force, specifically by Colonel John Boyd. And OODA, O-O-D-A, stands for, number one, observe. So you take in the new, raw data. Number two, orient. So you understand your position in this context. Number three, you decide. You choose a course of action. And number four, you act. You move, and then you re-loop the whole thing. So you observe, you orient, you decide, and then you act. This is used by fighter pilots in combat, where decisions must be made in seconds. And the power of this loop, it emphasizes fast iteration over frozen perfectionism. So you don't need all the data, you just need enough data to act. And then adjust based on the feedback the world gives you. Think about it. What if you applied this loop in your life? You stop overthinking, you make a choice, you learn from the result, and you make the next one faster. And that is boldness in action. Here's another tool that you can use starting today. It is called the 2-minute decision rule. If a decision takes less than 2 minutes to make, then make it immediately. And if it takes longer, schedule a specific time to decide and hold yourself to it. But decide. Why? Because your mind is not a storage unit. It's a processor. And when you leave 20 open tabs in your brain of I should decide that later, or I will do that later, then you lose energy, clarity, and confidence. This rule clears the clutter. And this rule clears the clutter very, very fast. Let me drop one more truth bomb on you. You don't make the best decisions in a stressed state. In fact, your ability to decide powerfully is directly linked to your nervous system. When you're in a fight or flight, cortisol spiked, shallow breath, tension in your body state, then your brain shuts down long-term thinking and you get tunnel vision. You go reactive. But if you take just 90 seconds to deeply breathe, to ground, to center your nervous system, you shift from threat mode into executive mode. And from there, your decisions are clearer, bolder, and more aligned. So don't just ask, what should I decide? Also ask, who am I when I decide? What state am I when I'm facing a decision? And that is what separates reactive people from the most powerful ones. So, every one of those tools is very simple, but applied consistently, they change lives. Okay. Next, we're going practical. We'll look at real-world tools and techniques you can use today to break paralysis. I want you to make faster calls and build the kind of boldness that really wins in life. Okay, so now you understand the psychology and the neuroscience and the cost of waiting. Let's get tactical. I'm giving you a toolkit, not just theory, but real-world methods to break indecisions right now. Some are simple, some are bold, and all of them work if you use them. So let's dive in. Tool number 1, decision triggers. The first tool is called a decision trigger. It's a preset rule that you design in advance. So when a decision, a certain condition is met for a decision, then the decision is made. No more negotiation, no more debate. Let me give you a couple of examples. You can say, if I'm still undecided after 48 hours, then I will say no. Or, if I wouldn't be excited to do it tomorrow, then I don't say yes today. Or you can also say, if I would advise a friend to go for it, then I go for it. Or you can say, if it's a 7 out of 10 or lower, then it's a no. So those are predefined rules that you design in advance. And these rules reduce the noise. Because remember, hesitation multiplies pressure, and rules restore your clarity. So start small. Create 1 or 2 decision triggers for your life. And watch how fast your energy shifts, because you know what to do. Tool number 2, micro decisions for momentum. Big decisions, they freeze people. So, shrink the battlefield. Instead of thinking, should I leave my job? Start with, well, can I update my CV today? Or can I book 1 conversation with someone who's done that? So momentum isn't magic, it's mechanical. 1 decision unlocks the next. 3 quick actions create a snowball. So here's a practical formula. Make 3 micro decisions in 30 minutes. No overthinking, just action. Do it every day. Do every day. Take 30 minutes and make 3 decisions. Tool number 3. Time pressure is clarity. Probably you have heard about Parkinson's law. This law says the following: work expands to fill the time that is available for its completion. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion. And the same goes for decisions. If you give yourself 3 weeks to decide, well, you will take 3 weeks. If you give yourself 3 hours, and I mean it, I really mean it's only 3 hours, then you will decide in 3 hours. So here is how you turn pressure into power. Set deadlines, real ones, with accountability. Then put skin in the game. So text a friend, text someone you know. I will make the call by 3 p.m. or send you $50. Skin in the game, accountability. Or use countdown timers. Just very easy. Good. Just a simple countdown timer. And when the countdown is over, the decision has been made. And this isn't about rushing. It's about forcing your mind out of its overthinking loop. This pressure creates presence, and presence creates better decisions. Tool number 4. The 2 futures visualization. Here's a powerful tool that I use with clients when they're really stuck. It's called the 2 futures visualization. You can close your eyes and imagine 2 clear futures. In the first one, you act boldly. You take the leap. You move. You commit. You can see it. You feel it. You live it. And in the second one, you stay frozen. You keep delaying. You stay safe. Feel it. Feel it really. In the one, you act. In the other one, you delay. And then ask yourself, which version of me do I respect more? Forget logic, forget external opinions. Go straight to your inner compass. This exercise bypasses overthinking and speaks directly to your core. And 9 times out of 10 people know instantly. And once you feel it, the cost of staying stuck, you can't unsee it. And now I have a bonus tool for you. It's called the mirror test. This one is raw, I promise, but it really works. Stand in front of the mirror and look yourself dead in the eyes. You ask one question. If I died 1 year from now, would I regret not making this decision today? You'll feel it in your gut, not in your head, your gut, because death is the ultimate clarity tool. Death cuts through excuses, and it reminds you what matters. Use it when everything else fails. So let's review our toolkit. Number 1, decision triggers in order to cut through the noise. Number 2, micro decisions to create more momentum. Number 3, time pressure in order to force clarity. Number 4, 2 futures visualization to tap the inner truth. And last but not least, the mirror test when you need absolute honesty. Here's the key. You don't need all of them. You just need the one that moves you today. Because action always kills fear. Every time. And now, let's take this even further. Let's hear some real-world stories. People who have used these tools and made the call and changed their lives. These are bold moves that created bold results, and they'll show you what's possible when you stop waiting and start deciding. So far, we've explored the psychology, the science, and the tools behind bold decision-making. But let me bring this home, because theory is nice, but story is truth in motion. And when you hear what happens when people finally stop hesitating, when they get clear, when they get brave and they move, you start to believe it's possible for you too. Here are 3 stories, 3 real people, 3 bold decisions that changed everything. Story number 1. The CEO who fired his co-founder. This one's Eric. Eric was the CEO of a fast-growing startup. Super smart guy, visionary, committed. But he had a co-founder who was dragging the company down. He had toxic energy, missed deadlines, and was passive-aggressive all the time. And for a year, Eric did nothing. He always hoped it would change. He had long calls, long talks with him. He tried being diplomatic. But deep down, he knew. He just was scared. He just was scared of the conflict, of losing the friendship, and of rocking the boat. Until one day, he sat down with me in a coaching session and I asked him, what is the cost of staying safe? What is the cost of staying safe? And then he paused. He looked down and then he said, I'm losing my team's respect and also my own. And that was the moment. That was the moment he knew what had to be done. So he made the call the next day. And it was hard, no question. It was messy. But within 6 months, revenue doubled, the culture was healed, and the investors re-engaged. And most of all, he said, I feel like a CEO again. I'm finally back in the driver's seat. So sometimes boldness looks like firing someone and letting go, so something better can rise. Moving on to the next story. Story number 2. The woman who ended a 12-year relationship. This one is Julia. Julia is a brilliant woman, successful on the outside, but stuck in long, slow death of a relationship. 12 years, no passion, no vision, just routine, comfort, and quiet resentment towards her husband. And every time she thought about leaving, her mind said, but what if I never find someone again? She also thought to herself, what will people think? And what if this is as good as it gets? So she stayed. She stayed for years. And then she tried the 2 futures visualization. And she saw herself 5 years from now, still in that apartment, still walking on eggshells. And she burst into tears. She said, I don't even recognize the woman I've become. And that week, she had the conversation. She left. It wasn't instant bliss. It was really hard, lonely, and raw. But only 18 months later, she started her own business. She moved to the coast, to the beach, where she always wanted to live. And she met someone very aligned with her soul. And she said, I stopped abandoning myself. Beautiful story. Story number 3. The guy who made the leap. This one is Marcos. Marcos had a 6-figure consulting job. Very solid income, good clients, super safe. But Marcos felt dead inside. He had this dream of starting a creative agency, something more aligned, more him. He'd been sitting on it for years. And every time he got close to quitting, his brain would flood him with thoughts like, what if you fail? You're not ready. Now is not the time. That is classic fear. That is classic ego. But then one day, he heard a version of the mirror test. And he stood in front of his mirror. He saw his own reflection. And then he asked, if I die a year from now, will I regret not doing this? And that was it. He gave his 30-day notice the next morning, and he went all in. It was tough. He had really, really rough 6 first months. He lost a lot of money. He doubted himself. But then, after 8 months, the momentum hit, and he found a dream client, and through him, a mutual friend. His team grew, his energy came back, and he built a business that he was proud of. He told me that in the end, It wasn't just about the business. It was about becoming the man who I wanted to be. So, what do these stories all have in common? It's not perfection. It is not certainty. It's not the easy roads. It's just this. It's a moment of honesty. It is a willingness to act while being afraid. And it is a decision that changed their trajectory. The truth is, you already know. Right now, there is a decision sitting in your body. And I know you can feel it. Maybe you've been avoiding it for days. And maybe even for years. But if you're listening to this, right here, right now, then it's probably time. So let me ask you, what's the bold decision you have been avoiding? Let me ask you again, what is the bold decision that you have been avoiding? Name it right now. Say it out loud. Or write it down. Or even whisper it to yourself right now. And then just take one step. Not the whole staircase, just one step. Because action isn't the result of clarity. Action is the source of clarity. You don't become bold by waiting until you're ready. You become bold by deciding before you feel ready and trusting that you will grow into it. That is how leaders are made. That is how lives change. And that's how you reclaim your power. So let me wrap this up for you. We've explored the hidden fears behind indecision, the neuroscience of hesitation, how ego, identity, and pressure hijacks clarity, and we've explored the tools that powerful people use to move boldly even when afraid. Here's what all comes down to. Decisiveness is not about having certainty. It's about trusting yourself enough to move without. There's no perfect moment, no final data set, no divine signal telling you it's finally time. You choose. And that choice creates momentum. So here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, act on one decision per day that you've been postponing. Not massive, life-shaking things, unless you're ready, of course, but the ones that have been lingering in your energy. And you know the ones. The email you haven't sent, the conversation you've avoided, the choice you've overthought into exhaustion. One bold move per day. One bold move per day. 7 days, 7 reps. 7 reps of courage. And with each one of those, notice how your clarity expands. Notice how your confidence strengthens. And notice how momentum returns. The people you admire didn't get where they are. They didn't get there by hesitating. They moved, they risked, and they chose. Not because they were fearless, but because they were willing to move with fear. And the question is, are you too? Are you willing to move in spite of fear? I thank you very much for listening to this episode, Making Bold Decisions. I am Christoph Sacher, the CEO coach. Be clear, be courageous, and never wait for permission to move. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.